everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Rofane. I'm Rofane Modise, and today I'm joined by, should I call you a legend?
No, just call me Nick.
Just Nick. Matzukis, did I get it right?
You got it.
And you've just got this really interesting background or history in the music industry. Can you just give us a brief overview of that?
Oh, how much time do you have? Okay, well, it all started for me when I was 8 years old. My mother sent me for violin lessons.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to know. I used to come home and bash her cake tins with wooden hangers. I just wanted to be a drummer.
Yeah.
So, and I still play to this day. I'll carry on playing until I die. I'll go to my grave with a pair of drumsticks proudly in my hand. So I've always been into music, very much so. And, then like any good Greek boy growing up in Zimbabwe, I was told, you will go to law school or medical school, choose.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I want to go and be a musician and drummer. And they said, no, you're going to law school. So my first love was music, my first passion. But then I discovered at university my second passion, which was the law. And I really enjoyed it. And I did well at it, and I excelled at it, and I did really well. And then after that, in my final year, I discovered my third passion, which was teaching, because they made me a tutor in my final year at Wits, and then they asked me to become a lecturer at Wits, and I lectured for a few years. I became a senior lecturer, and I really loved teaching. So now I kind of had to figure out how to get my three loves into a career, So anyway, I hung up my legal robes and my academic robes for a while, and I joined a band called the Helicopters. And you wouldn't remember them, Khofrani. There's no, your parents wouldn't, your grandparents might remember them. Okay. But in the day, the Helicopters were very, very successful.
Yeah. We're talking platinum successful.
Like big time,
Yeah.
for South Africa. In the days when a platinum album meant you were selling 250,000 copies, we had 5 of those. And, in the days when number one song meant that you were getting played on 20 radio stations 10 times a day, that was us. And it all culminated in, when was it, 1989, I think, when we went on tour with Mango Groove. They were just starting out. Yeah, they were our support band. They were our opening band. And they just released their first album. They were starting out, and we went on this tour together. And we were the headliners, and we filled everywhere. The Good Hope Arena in Cape Town has 20,000 people.
Yeah.
The Standard Bank Arena in Joburg, not the rugby field, the basketball court, that's like 15,000 people.
Yeah.
And we just filled everywhere, country, up and down. I mean, we toured for 7 months, and we all thought we were going to come back from that tour and buy the house on the hill and the Lamborghini, Not so much, because there was no money.
What do you mean there was no money?
No money was being paid to us, just no money. So anyway, we decompressed after this tour, took a week off, and then we called a meeting with the manager. Manager never pitched up to the meeting. Where's the manager? Nobody knew. Nobody knows. So we phoned his wife. Oh, no, don't know where he is. I think he's gone overseas. We're getting divorced.
What?
Now, he's got all the tour money, right? Okay. So now we're scratching our heads. We're not getting any money out of our recordings. We're not getting any money out of our compositions. And I co-wrote some of the songs. So the band is standing there, and they're looking at me over here, and they're saying, okay, Mr. Fancy Pants lawyer, advocate of the High Court dude, what do we do? Where's our money?
Yeah.
And I realized that I didn't know. I'm a qualified lawyer at this point, okay? I didn't know what to do. So I go and see the only real music lawyer who was operating at the time, who's the great Derek Rabin, who's out of it now. And Derek very kindly spent a couple of hours with me, showed me how prejudicial our contracts were. And remember, I was a qualified lawyer. Now, this is a bit embarrassing, okay?
Yeah.
And then I realized that I also didn't know anything about copyright. Because even though I got the copyright prize at Wits, the word music is maybe mentioned twice in the year. It's all IP and trademarks and patents, and music is hardly, and when they come to copyright, they start talking about books and works of art. They don't talk about music. Then I realized at this point that the music industry has got its whole different sort of conventions and way of talking and different language and nomenclature and everything. So I started trying to research with my own band as my first client. And there were no South African books. There were only American books. So I read one called Everything You Need to Know About the Music Industry, but We're Too Afraid to Ask. But it was American. It didn't really help the situation.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to help my band, and I go and see the record label, the great Ivor Harburg, who's still a friend to this day. I say, Ivor, where's our money? He says, what money, Nick? Are you talking about your recording income? Are you talking about your download income? Are you talking about your needle time? Are you talking about your public performance? Which one are you talking about? I didn't know what he was talking about. From there, I went to see the publisher, who was on to Warner Chappell Publishing. And I said, where's our money? And they said, okay, what money, Nick? Are you talking about your mechanical royalties, your performance royalties, your synchronization
so
royalties, your
much.
repro? Which are you talking about, Nick?
Yeah.
I didn't know what they would. So then I realized how little I knew, because you don't learn this stuff at WITS
Right.
or any university. So now I had to learn, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned, and I was learning as I went. Then Mango came to see me. They were my second client because they also got ripped off. And then Simpiwe Dana and Super Hot Sticks Mabuse and all of them.
Goodness.
All of them started to come see me because now I was the only guy doing this, and I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I promise you, I made so many bad mistakes. And I gave a lot of bad advice, but I learned as I went. And then before I knew it, it was a few years down the line, and a couple of decades down the line, my notes that I'd been keeping became a workbook, and then my workbook became a handbook.
You were setting the blueprints for it.
Yeah, exactly. And then that became my first textbook. And by then, I'd opened a college, which was teaching in music and music business, and now I felt qualified to teach in it. So I carried on consulting to the industry. Artists came to see me, composers, publishers, producers. Then the labels started to come and see me to give me a more balanced view, and I got the other side as well. Then the CMOs like Samro and Capasso and Sampra started to consult with me, and I became a director of Capasso, the founding chairperson of Capasso, which is our mechanical rights society. And then I sat on the Sampra board, and then eventually government started consulting with me until I started disagreeing with what they were doing in the copyright amendment bill, and then not so much, but now they are again, but we're getting there. And so that's really my story. That's how I ended up teaching in this business. I wrote a book and I give a course, and whereas I learned the hard way, the very hard way, I want people to learn the easy way.
Right.
That's my mission.
Nick, you've experienced both the creative and the technical side of the music industry. What would you say is the biggest misconception artists have about the business side of music?
It's simply this. I want to play my guitar, I want to play my keyboard, I want to rap, I want to make my beats, and somebody else will take care of the business.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
Big mistake. Because if you have that approach, now listen, I know Jay-Z is not the flavor of the month at the moment, but at one stage, Jay-Z said something quite interesting.
Yeah.
And this is how he put it. I'm not a businessman.
I'm a business
man. And you know what? Yeah, whether we love or hate Jay-Z is not the point.
Right.
He was right.
Right.
If you don't treat your career as a business, you are going to be that starving pauper lying on the side of the street. Because the music industry, there's a famous saying by Hunter S. Thompson. The music industry is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. And then there's the negative side. That says it all.
That is insane.
It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way if you are prepared to treat your career as a business.
Right.
If you just want to play your guitar and let somebody else handle all the business, you know what? The manager, might not know what he needs to know, probably doesn't. 95%. I've just come out of a meeting now in your parking lot, as it happens online, where I was talking about this very point to somebody very important. Managers don't know enough about the business to manage.
Sure.
And secondly, he's supposed to protect you from the world, presuming he's honest. But if he's not, who's going to protect you from him? Only you. Only you. So if you don't know about the business, if you don't know about royalty streams and CMOs, business models, copyright, contracts, you are going to get ripped off. You are going to end up that starving pauper. If you know about those things, then there's no reason why you shouldn't have a decent, good living wage. I mean, I'm not here to make you into the billionaire.
Yeah.
But if that happens, great. I've got no problem. I mean, AKA was one of ours, Black Motion I taught and so on.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
It's the name dropping for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've taught a lot of people.
Yeah.
Salila Salota, I mean.
Yeah.
So, if you become those billionaires, that's great. But my job is to make sure that you get a nice, stable, you've got food on your table, you've got a decent home, you're driving a decent car. If I've got that for you, then I've achieved my mission. But you need three things. You need musicality.
Musicality meaning?
you do need to know your way around music. It's not enough to be able to just play by ear. You've got to communicate in the studio as a producer.
Right.
You've got to say, listen, that's not an E minor suspended sevenths, that's an A major.
Yeah.
You've got to know that stuff.
Yeah.
Secondly, you've got to know your way around a studio, the technical side. You've got to know pre-production, post-production, production, capturing, sound recording, mixing, mastering. You've got to know all that stuff. Because the days of just signing to a record label who'll do all that for you are gone. Those days are over. Now a record label will only look at you if you've got a track record of finished productions under your belt. And then maybe you don't want to talk to that label. Maybe you want to keep your copyrights yourself, which I'll also teach you how to do, which is where the third thing comes in, which is the music business knowledge. You've got to know royalties, business models, CMOs, where to get your money, how to get your money. Copyright, you don't want to be the infringer, and you definitely don't want to be the infringed. And then thirdly, contracts. So those three things, musicality, technical knowledge, and the business side. If you know those three things, you will make it in this industry. If you are missing one of them, you won't.
You've helped a lot of artists, taught a lot of artists that we know and love. What are the, especially when it comes to negotiating and contracts, what are the 3 red flags that you tell them to watch out for, especially when it comes to contracts?
I wish there were only 3. It's more like 333. Yeah, well, I mean, the big ones are recoupment, which is where the record label acts as really an expensive bank. They lend you the money. They don't give it to you. So what they do is they'll give you what's called an advance, and then they will recoup that from your royalties. So you won't see a rand of royalties until they've paid themselves back.
Jeez.
That's the first thing. The second thing is they do what's called cross-collateralization, which is if your first album does well, but the second album tanks and it cost a lot of money to make, they will pay themselves back for that second album out of your first album. So your royalties could dry up from album 1. It happened to Zahara. So lots of things like that. Then there's what I called in my book the Linda Ronstadt clause, which is where if you don't come out of recoupment, you've got to pay them back out of your own pocket. So you're going to sell your house. You know, now there's a new thing coming out, which I only picked up last week in a major record label contract.
Okay.
Copyright is king, right? You want to keep your copyright. So what you want to do is you only want a license for distribution to a label. You license it and you're keeping your own copyrights. Guess what? Then I'll put a clause in there saying that if they've paid you in advance and you don't come out of recoupment, they will take your copyrights and own them. I know, right? That one I picked up last week.
You've got to be kidding me.
I'm not kidding you. I can show it to you. It's in a major label contract that I looked at for a client last week. Now, the important thing is this. I stay in the industry. I stay doing this stuff. I do a lot of this consulting work because it keeps me current. I know what's happening in these contracts, up to date, and I bring that into my lecture room. And so my students know about this tomorrow.
Right. Goodness, Nick. Oh, goodness. I think we need a full day with you because this is ridiculous. Oh, my goodness.
There's a lot.
And it makes so much sense. You know, you watch artists that we've always loved and admired, and then you wonder how on earth do you lose so much money when you've got so many platinum hits. And then in closing, what would you say, what advice would you give to aspiring artists that are emerging artists, especially within this digital age, within this AI age as well? Because I can imagine copyright looks a bit different, especially within this AI age as well.
Okay, well, first of all, you've mentioned AI. AI is not our friend at the moment. It's our enemy. We've had other enemies in the music industry. We had Napster, right, which was the first peer-to-peer piracy file sharing site. Napster became Streamcast. I mean, you know, we've got ones in this country. Should I mention them?
I don't want to get sued. So.
You don't want to get sued, okay. Don't use that pirate site that lets you upload for free and you don't get paid. Don't use it, folks. It's bad. There's one here in South Africa. Okay, I won't mention the name.
If you know, you know.
But the whole piracy thing,
right.
you know, just music being for free on the internet. The music industry overcame that. Everybody thought the music industry was dead because of piracy, because it all started with Napster.
Right.
And you know, these sites that LimeWire, Streamcast, Grokster, all these sites, and the South African ones now, are based on that same software. The music industry beat them by suing them and shutting them down.
Right.
Sometimes you got to sue. You know, it is what it is.
Right.
The next big challenge was, well, the internet itself and the decline of the CD, of physical sales.
Sure.
And we all know vinyl made a comeback, but the CD died, and then how were the record labels going to pay for their jets in the sky? Well, I tell you how, because Apple came to the party and invented something called iTunes, and there was the download born. That saved the music industry.
Right.
Now we've got a new challenge, and that challenge is AI. And AI is copyright infringement, because what it does is it goes, when you say to AI, make me a song that sounds like Drake, it goes and it listens to all the Drake songs and all the ones and zeros. It copies those ones and zeros, and that's where the infringement is. Not allowed to do that without permission of Drake. It copies them, and then it learns from them, and it makes this new Drake-sounding song. So at the moment, AI is copyright infringement. It's not our friend. It's the enemy of the industry at the moment. The day that AI stops copying the ones and zeros and is actually making something new, as long as it's not sounding like Drake,
right,
then it's kind of playing God, but in music, right? Now, how we're going to handle that is going to be a whole different ballgame. The tech heads say it is theoretically possible for this to happen. Personally, I don't. I'm not a tech head. I'm a lawyer, business, music industry guy. I don't know anything about technology, but I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible for a machine to create what our human brains can create.
Right.
I don't think so.
Right.
So I'm trusting that we'll never get there. But if we do, that's going to be the whole next fight for us to have. My advice to artists currently is this. Know those three things I told you. Musicality, the technical side. You've got to know how to record, folks, and mix live. You've got to make yourself sound and look good live or in the studio. And thirdly, the business side. If you ignore the business side, you're going to end up on the side of the street. Know those three things, and you will make it. Don't use AI. AI is not your friend at the moment. Do it yourself. Create it yourself. Don't copy anyone else's work.
Yeah.
Don't do, and really AI is just copying someone else's work through a very sophisticated tool. That's all.
Right. Goodness, Nick. Please tell us about your book, where people can find you.
So I work at Academy of Sound Engineering, which is
Right.
across the road from the SABC in Auckland Park.
Amazing.
We've got a little branch in Cape Town as well.
Yeah.
People can get the book just by emailing info@ASE. ASE stands for Academy of Sound Engineering. info@ase.co.za, and they'll get you a copy.
For free?
You got to pay a couple of $100.
There we go.
For the
I
book.
was like, had a little cost there.
But if you're nice to me, give me a Christmas present, maybe I'll get a free one. You've got a free one. You get a free one.
Fantastic. We're definitely going to do a part 2 of this. And I think after people watch this and getting more questions,
Sure.
I think it's exciting. And also what I appreciate is it's not key skills that are important for the music industry alone. Whatever industry you're in, know your field, especially if you're reliant on other people for the service, know it yourself.
Know it yourself. And there are courses, man. I ran a course last year called the Music Business Masterclass.
Yeah.
So successful, we're doing it again this year in February. And I've had people like Salila, Salota, Robin Cole, Maya Spector, the greatest artists in the country come. And at the end of that thing, when we have our little award ceremony where we give the certificates away, every single one of them was interviewed afterwards and said, there was stuff that I didn't know. Now, a guy like Salilo has been in the industry 50 years.
Right.
And he said, I learned so much out of this course, I had no idea what I didn't know.
Right.
It was the same for me
Yeah.
when I started. So the knowledge is out there, folks. Get it. It's not like the old days.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick, for borrowing us your time. And
You're
thank you
welcome.
for serving the music industry. Music does feed the soul. And thank you for watching and listening. And we will catch you next time.
Peace.